The asteroid field stretched out before Captain Auric Terran like a frozen storm. Jagged rocks of every size floated in the void, spinning lazily in zero gravity. His ship, the Starhawk, weaved between them with practiced ease, its engines humming a steady rhythm that matched the calm determination in his chest. He had flown through asteroid belts before, some more dangerous than this, but this one had a reputation. Traders whispered that entire convoys had vanished here, swallowed by the rocky labyrinth or torn apart by hidden gravitational currents. Auric's mission was simple in theory: scout the outer rim for potential mining zones and report any hazards. Simple, he liked to tell himself, but he knew danger often hid in plain sight. That was the kind of thinking that had kept him alive through countless missions, and it was the kind of thinking that made humans different from other species in the galaxy. Bold, intelligent, and willing to take risks when the stakes were high. As he adjusted the thrusters to dodge a spinning boulder, a small blip on the sensors caught his attention. It wasn't a ship, at least not in the conventional sense. The reading was erratic, weak, but definitely alive. He squinted at the holographic display. Something's out there, he muttered to himself, and it's calling for help. Without hesitation, he altered course toward the source. The Starhawk glided over the surface of a massive, jagged rock, its metallic hull scraping against smaller fragments. The sensors became clearer. Someone or something was trapped inside a structure wedged between the asteroids. It was a research station, or at least what remained of it. Metal panels hung at odd angles, sparks flying where the power conduits had ripped apart. Airlocks were broken, and smoke puffed from cracks along the walls. Eric's pulse quickened. There was no telling how long someone had been inside, but whatever it was still alive. He activated the communications array. "This is Captain Auric Terran. If you can hear me, I'm coming for you." "Stay calm," there was no response. Only faint static and a high-pitched squeal of damaged electronics. Auric secured his ship to the station with a magnetic grappling arm. The Starhawk's lights illuminated the wreckage, revealing twisted metal and shattered panels. He could see a small figure through a cracked viewport, a child. Her skin was pale, almost luminescent, and her eyes wide with fear. She clutched a broken piece of machinery like a shield. "Hold on, I've got you," he whispered, more to himself than to her. Suiting up took only moments. He donned his protective armor, checked his oxygen supply, and activated the magnetic boots. The vacuum of space wouldn't stop him, but one wrong move could mean an instant death. He pried open a bent hatch and floated inside. The interior was worse than he imagined. Debris littered the corridors, electrical sparks jumping from exposed wires. He could hear the child crying softly, her voice trembling. Following the sound, he found her crouched beneath a collapsed support beam. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'm here to help. You're safe now." She looked up, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief. Her small hands trembled as she clutched the machinery piece tighter. Who are you?" she whispered. "Someone who won't let anything happen to you," Auric replied, and extended his hand. Her hesitation was brief. The moment she took it, relief flooded her face. Carefully, Auric lifted the beam off her, mindful of the jagged metal. He was strong, but he had to be precise. One slip, and the debris could crush them both. "Thank you," she said, voice barely audible over the hum of damaged systems. "Don't thank me yet. We still have to get out of here." He guided her through the wreckage, using his body to shield her from falling debris and sparking wires. Every step was dangerous, every turn could reveal another collapse. But the human instinct for survival, honed through centuries of adversity on harsh worlds, made him relentless. He calculated, adapted, and pushed forward, always keeping the child safe. Finally, they reached the main airlock. Auric attached a tether and they floated out into space. He secured the child to his chest using the harness built into his armor and activated the jet thrusters. The Starhawk was close enough now to catch them, and with a controlled burst of power, he propelled them toward the ship. Inside, he helped the child remove her helmet. Her hair was damp with sweat, her eyes wide but alive. "I'm Auric," he said, smiling. "What's your name?" "Lyra," she whispered. "Lyra, you're safe now. We're going home." The ship's medical scanner beeped. Nothing was broken, though she had minor burns and bruises. Auric guided her to a medical pod, carefully monitoring her vitals. She calmed quickly, the fear in her eyes replaced with curiosity and wonder. Humans, she realized, were strange. Strong, kind and fearless in ways she had never seen. As the Starhawk left the asteroid field behind, Auric reviewed the data. Lyra's identification chip revealed her lineage. She was the daughter of Ambassador Soria, a diplomat with significant influence among her people. The irony was not lost on him. Here he was, a human risking life and limb to save the child of someone who considered humans a political threat. He shook his head with a small laugh. "You always find trouble, don't you, Lyra?" The girl giggled softly. "I didn't mean to," she said. "I know," Auric replied. "Sometimes trouble just finds you." Even as he spoke, he felt the weight of the situation pressing down. Delivering Lyra safely would not end their story. Ambassador Soria was known for her strict policies, and she would demand answers. But Auric had learned long ago that humans had a unique way of turning even impossible odds into opportunities. Courage, quick thinking, and empathy. These were traits that had carried his species through countless challenges, and now they would be tested again. "Let's get you home, Lyra," he said, his tone firm but gentle. "Your mother will want to see you safe." The journey to Soria City was long but uneventful. Auric spent the time explaining the basics of space travel to Lyra, answering her endless questions with patience. She was curious, intelligent, and brave, qualities he admired. He felt a strange sense of kinship with her, a protective instinct that humans often developed naturally for the vulnerable. Finally, the gleaming towers of Soria City appeared on the horizon. The alien architecture was unlike anything Auric had ever seen. Smooth curves, floating platforms, and lights that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The city was alive, humming with energy, yet there was a certain rigidity to it, a sense that every action here was observed and judged. As the Starhawk descended, Auric prepared Lyra for the handover. He knew the encounter with her mother would not be simple. Soria was strict, intelligent, and unyielding. Humans often underestimated alien patience and cunning, but Auric had faced far worse odds before. The hatch opened. Lyra ran toward the waiting figures, and Auric followed more slowly. Ambassador Soria's eyes locked onto him instantly, sharp and calculating. For a moment there was silence. "You've brought her back," Soria said, voice steady yet edged with something he couldn't quite read. "She's safe." Auric replied simply, "That's all that matters." Soria studied him, her expression unreadable. She had seen countless humans before, most of them arrogant, brash, or reckless. But this one, he was different. Brave, precise, and most importantly, he had saved what mattered most to her. Lyra ran into her mother's arms, and for a moment everything else faded away. The political tensions, the history of conflict, the distrust. In that instant, a human had proven that compassion and courage could bridge even the widest divides. Soria looked at Auric once more. "You have done something extraordinary," she said quietly, though her tone held the weight of command. "But now, you must leave," Auric nodded. He understood for now. But something told him this was not the end. Humans had a way of leaving a mark on those they helped, an imprint that lingered long after the immediate danger had passed. And Auric Terran was nothing if not persistent. As he stepped back toward his ship, he glanced at Lyra one last time. Her eyes shone with admiration and gratitude. He gave her a small nod and a smile, silently promising that he would always be there if she needed him again. The Starhawk lifted off, and the city below shrank into a glittering landscape of lights and curves. Auric allowed himself a quiet moment of satisfaction. He had risked everything for someone who, in another life, might have been considered an enemy. Yet through courage, intelligence, and compassion, he had reminded both humans and aliens why humans were remarkable. And he knew, deep down, that the story was only beginning. The city of Soria stretched before Auric like a jewel carved from the stars. Its towers spiraled high into the sky, their surfaces shimmering with iridescent light. Hovering walkways connected buildings that seemed to float in midair, and the streets below teemed with alien life, some tall and elegant, others small and swift, all moving with precision and purpose. For a human, the city was breathtaking, but it also felt strange, almost alien in its rhythm. Auric guided Lyra carefully through the main gates. She clung to his hand, her small fingers gripping tightly. The child's eyes were wide, absorbing every detail. Despite everything she had been through, there was a spark in her expression, a curiosity and courage that reminded Auric of humans, the same qualities that had kept his people alive for centuries in a universe full of dangers. At the heart of the city, the Grand Palace stood, a structure of flowing curves and glowing panels. Ambassador Soria awaited them in the main chamber, surrounded by advisors and security personnel. Her tall, elegant form radiated authority, her eyes sharp and calculating, locked onto Auric as he entered. "Captain Auric Terran," she said, her voice calm but firm, "you have returned my daughter in safety. That is commendable." Auric bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. "She is safe, Ambassador. That is all that matters." Soria's gaze softened ever so slightly as she turned to Lyra. The girl ran into her mother's arms, and for a moment, the tension in the room eased. Lyra clung tightly, her small frame trembling slightly. "I thought I had lost you," Soria whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Lyra looked up at Auric, eyes shining. "He saved me," she said simply. Soria's attention returned to Auric. "I see that. And yet, humans are not often welcome here. Your presence could be problematic." Auric understood the implication. Diplomatic tensions between humans and her people had been high for years. Trade disputes, territorial disagreements, and historical conflicts had built walls of distrust between the species. Yet here he stood, a human, and he had risked his life to save her daughter. That act alone challenged the old prejudices. "I did what anyone would do," Auric said simply. "Anyone who could help would have done the same." Soria studied him, her expression unreadable. She wanted to be angry, to demand answers for his intrusion into their city. But something in his words and his calm confidence made her hesitate. Humans were unpredictable, bold, determined, and often, when they acted out of compassion, the results were extraordinary. Lyra tugged at Auric's arm. "Can he stay a little longer, Mother?" she asked, her voice hopeful. Soria looked down at her daughter, then back at Auric. "He will not stay," she said finally, though her tone lacked the firmness it had carried before. "But we will see." Auric nodded, respecting her authority. "I only wish to ensure Lyra's safety until she is fully recovered." The next hours passed in a mixture of observation, medical checks, and cautious conversation. Lyra's injuries were minor, mostly bruises and scratches from the debris. Her spirit, however, had been shaken. Auric stayed by her side, patiently answering questions and explaining how he had navigated the dangerous asteroid field to reach her. "You were very brave," Lyra said quietly, her eyes wide. "I was so scared," Auric smiled. "Being scared doesn't make you weak. Being brave means acting even when you are scared," Lyra nodded thoughtfully. "Humans are different." "We like to think so," Auric replied with a small laugh. Meanwhile, Soria observed from a distance. Her initial impression of humans had been cautious, even dismissive. They were outsiders, often reckless and arrogant. But Auric's actions told a different story. He was disciplined, careful, and above all selfless. He had risked himself for someone not even his own species. That kind of courage, that kind of empathy, which was rare, perhaps even unique, her advisors whispered among themselves. Some feared that allowing him any influence would create tension. Others, quieter but thoughtful, noted that humans like Auric could be valuable allies. Soria remained silent, weighing each possibility. As evening approached, she called Auric into a private chamber. The room was illuminated by soft ambient lights, casting gentle shadows on the walls. Soria seated herself and gestured for him to sit across from her. "You have done more than anyone could expect," she said. "Yet your presence here is complicated. You see, our people value loyalty and caution above all else. Your intrusion could be interpreted as a threat." Auric remained calm. "I understand, Ambassador. I have no intention of causing trouble. My only concern is Lyra's safety." Soria studied him closely. "You humans. You act on instinct, yet your instincts are often precise, calculated, dangerous in the right way." Auric raised an eyebrow. "I'll take that as a compliment." Soria allowed herself a faint smile. "Perhaps it is. But you must understand, trust is not easily given. You have saved my daughter, but that does not erase history." "I don't expect it to," Auric replied. "I only hope my actions show that humans are capable of more than conflict. We can be allies, protectors, even friends." Soria regarded him for a long moment. Her eyes softened, though a part of her remained guarded. "You speak boldly, human. Boldness is unusual in your kind, but not unwelcome." At that moment, Lyra entered the room, clutching a small device she had found earlier in the palace. "Mother," she said. "He told me stories about the stars and the asteroids. He showed me how he moved through space when the rocks fell. He didn't give up on me." Soria looked down at her daughter, then back at Arik. There was a spark of admiration in her eyes, an acknowledgement of his skill, his courage, and his heart. "You are extraordinary," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Humans. Perhaps they are not so simple after all." Arik gave a small nod. "We are what we make of ourselves. Courage, compassion, and loyalty. Those are the traits that define us." For the next few days, Arik remained in the city, observing, assisting, and quietly teaching Lyra. He helped her with basic skills, navigation in controlled environments, and problem-solving exercises that the city schools would normally provide. Lyra flourished under his guidance, her fear replaced with curiosity and confidence. During this time, Arik also witnessed the rigid structures of alien society. Every action was observed, every decision weighed carefully against protocol. Yet even within these constraints, he found ways to adapt and help. He suggested minor improvements to the safety systems, adjustments in medical procedures, and even offered strategies to streamline communications between different sectors of the city. His suggestions were practical, human-centered, and often surprisingly effective. Soria noticed the subtle changes. Her people, though advanced, had grown accustomed to routines and tradition. Arik's presence, his human perspective, brought a fresh energy, a new way of thinking that sparked curiosity and innovation. She could not deny it. Humans, when acting with purpose and empathy, were formidable. One evening, as Arik sat with Lyra watching the twin moons rise over the city, the girl asked, "Will you stay, Captain Arik?" "Can you stay with us?" Arik hesitated, understanding the weight of the question. His duty as a human captain called him back to his colony. Yet, the bond he had formed with Lyra, the trust he had earned from her mother, and the subtle changes he had helped inspire in this alien society made leaving feel wrong. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but I promise I will always be here if you need me. And I will never abandon you, Lyra." Lyra smiled, her small hand gripping his. "That's enough for now." Soria, standing silently behind them, watched the exchange. She felt a shift within herself. Humans were often unpredictable, and yet they possessed qualities that could not be ignored. Courage, empathy, and the ability to inspire loyalty and admiration across species lines. Perhaps, she thought, these humans were more than she had ever imagined. For the first time, she wondered if her rigid stance against outsiders had been too narrow. Here was a human who had not only saved her daughter, but had also shown wisdom, restraint, and an uncanny ability to bridge gaps between species. Trust, she realized, was not something that could be demanded. It was earned through deeds, courage, and compassion, and Captain Arik Terran had earned it. The city lights flickered against the dark horizon, and Arik looked toward the stars, sensing that this was only the beginning of a deeper journey, one where humans could prove their value not just as explorers or warriors, but as protectors, allies, and friends to those who had once been enemies. The city had begun to settle into a fragile peace. Lyra laughed more easily now, exploring the floating walkways with careful curiosity. Arik watched her from a distance, his human instincts constantly alert. Even as the city appeared calm, he knew that danger often came when least expected. It did not take long for the warning to arrive. A coded transmission flashed on the Starhawk's console, intercepted from a rogue alien faction operating in the outer sectors. Their message was short, urgent, and chilling. "Human interference will not be tolerated. Retribution is imminent," Arik frowned. He had faced hostile factions before, but this one was different. They had tracked him, or perhaps they had learned of his actions through other means. Either way, their intent was clear: they would attack, and their target would include both the city and its inhabitants. He shared the information with Ambassador Soria. Her reaction was immediate, a mix of shock and determination. The faction responsible for Lyra's initial danger had not forgotten. They were skilled, ruthless, and intent on destabilizing both human and alien communities. "You must understand, Captain," Soria said, her voice tense. "If this faction succeeds, it could ignite a war. Our defenses are strong, but they are no match for someone who knows our weaknesses." Arik nodded. I understand. But we can fight this. We can stop them before it spreads, Soria studied him. Your people, humans, often act on instinct. That can be dangerous. And often effective, Arik replied. Instinct, combined with strategy and courage, can accomplish more than brute force alone. She gave him a measured look, acknowledging his point. Then we must act quickly. I will deploy our security forces, but we will need more than that. We need your insight. Arik spent the next few hours studying the city's layout, security systems, and the transmitted data from the rogue faction. He noticed patterns that the aliens had overlooked: small supply routes, weak points in patrol routines, and predictable response protocols. He proposed adjustments, human ingenuity applied to alien systems, blending tactics and technology in ways the aliens had not considered. Your approach is unconventional, Soria admitted, but it may be our only hope. Arik smiled slightly. Sometimes the unconventional works best. Meanwhile, Lyra's curiosity remained constant. She followed Arik as he moved through command centers, asking endless questions. Why do you always think of a way to stop them? She asked. Because someone has to, Arik replied. And humans. We don't give up easily. We look for solutions even when it seems impossible. Her eyes sparkled. I want to be like that when I grow up. You already are, Lyra. Bravery isn't just about fighting. It's about staying calm and thinking clearly when things are dangerous. As the city's defenses were adjusted under Arik's guidance, the rogue faction made their move. Small ships emerged from the outer sectors, sleek and fast, designed to evade detection. They carried explosives, weapons, and intent to destroy. The city's alarms blared and panic rippled through the streets. Arik took command of the defensive operation alongside Soria. He coordinated human and alien forces, combining tactics that drew on the strengths of both species. Humans were bold, capable of improvisation and quick thinking, while the aliens brought precision, advanced technology, and powerful energy shields. Together, under Arik's leadership, they formed a strategy that was stronger than either could achieve alone. The first wave of attackers approached, and Arik piloted a strike team in an intercept mission. The rogue ships were fast but predictable. He used his human instincts, calculated timing, and superior maneuvering to outflank them. Explosions lit the darkness of space as ships collided or were disabled. In the city, Soria's forces held the defensive positions, guided by Arik's strategy. He had taught them to anticipate moves rather than react blindly. The combination of human creativity and alien technology turned the tide of battle. Lyra watched from a secure observation deck, her young face pressed to the glass, heart pounding with worry and excitement. Can we really win? She whispered to herself. Yes, Arik said, appearing beside her quietly. Because humans never give up, and because your people are willing to fight together. That's the difference. The rogue faction's leader, a tall, imposing figure known as Veyron, was surprised by the resistance. He had expected a quick, decisive attack. Instead, the defenders were organized, adaptive, and unusually courageous. He realized that humans were not to be underestimated. Arik's presence had transformed the city's defense, turning it into something stronger than any single species could have achieved alone. As the battle intensified, Arik led a daring maneuver, flying directly into the heart of the enemy formation. Using a combination of human ingenuity and his knowledge of alien technology, he disabled the lead ship, causing chaos among the attackers. Smaller ships collided or were forced to retreat. The rogue faction's morale began to crumble. Back in the city, Soria coordinated countermeasures and the alien forces began pushing the attackers back. Their advanced technology, when guided by Arik's strategic input, was even more effective. The human-alien alliance proved formidable, each species complementing the other. Finally, after hours of tense conflict, the remaining rogue ships retreated. The city was battered but intact, its citizens shaken but safe. Arik landed the Starhawk, exhausted but satisfied. Lyra ran to him immediately, throwing her arms around his waist. You did it, she cried. You saved everyone. Arik hugged her back, ruffling her hair gently. We did it together. Your courage helped too, Lyra. Never forget that bravery isn't about being alone, it's about standing with others. Soria approached, her expression serious but not without warmth. Captain Arik, your actions today have shown that humans are more than we believed. You are resourceful, courageous, and capable of inspiring loyalty across species lines. Arik bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. Thank you, Ambassador. I only did what anyone who could help would do. But I appreciate your words, Soria nodded. Your presence has changed many minds. Humans are no longer seen solely as outsiders. They are potential allies, even friends. The tension in the city eased. Citizens began to emerge cautiously from their shelters, observing the aftermath. Humans and aliens alike worked together to repair damage, guided by Aric's advice and Soria's leadership. The city's energy returned slowly, proof that courage, collaboration, and adaptability could overcome even the most dangerous threats. Later, as the city began to rebuild, Aric and Soria met privately. You have done much for my people, she said. Yet I know your kind does not linger without reason. You will want to leave soon. Aric shook his head. Not yet. There is still work to be done, and I want to make sure Lyra is safe, and that your people know humans can be trusted. Soria's eyes softened. Then perhaps, you are not the enemy we once believed. Perhaps humans can be more than that. Lyra ran into the room holding a small model of the Starhawk. Captain Aric! Look what I made. You saved everyone, and I want to remember it. Aric smiled, kneeling to her level. I'll remember too, Lyra. This day will stay with me forever. The bond between human and alien child had grown stronger, and Soria could see that her daughter's trust in Aric would not be easily broken. She realized that humans possess something unique: courage, creativity, and empathy that could cross boundaries and unite even the most divided societies. As night fell over the city, Aric looked out at the twin moons. The battle had been won, but he knew that vigilance would always be necessary. Threats could arise anywhere in the galaxy. Yet tonight, humans had proven that their combination of bravery, intelligence, and compassion could change the course of events. They could protect not only their own kind but others as well. And for the first time, Soria understood that humans were not just survivors, they were catalysts for hope, bridging divides and creating alliances that no one had thought possible. Aric turned to Lyra, who was still buzzing with excitement. Ready for some rest? He asked gently. Yes, she said, yawning but smiling. I want to dream about the stars tonight, about all the adventures we can have. Aric chuckled. Then dream big, Lyra. And never forget, courage, loyalty, and kindness are what make a hero, not strength alone. For the first time since his arrival, he felt a deep sense of belonging. Humans had always been explorers, fighters and survivors, but here, in the heart of an alien city, he saw the most important quality of all: the ability to inspire trust, unity, and hope in those who had once been enemies. And the galaxy would remember that. The city was quiet in the early morning, but Aric knew it was a calm before the storm. Scouts had reported unusual activity in the outskirts, signals of the rogue faction regrouping. Though their first attack had failed, Aric suspected they were planning something larger, more dangerous. He walked with Lyra along one of the floating bridges, her small hand in his. Do you think they will come again? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. They will, Aric replied honestly. But we will be ready. Lyra's eyes widened. Even if it's really scary? Especially if it's scary, Aric said. Bravery is not the absence of fear. It's acting even when you're afraid. They arrived at the city's central command. Soria and her advisors were already there, monitoring the perimeter and reviewing sensor readings. Aric quickly assessed the situation. The rogue faction had grown bolder, sending several larger ships and new weapons designed to breach the city's shields. Their attack won't be like last time, Aric said. They've learned from their mistakes. We need to be smarter, faster, and more unpredictable. Soria studied him carefully. And how do you propose we do that? By combining our strengths in a way they can't anticipate, he replied. Humans think differently. We improvise, adapt, and make the impossible possible. Aric's plan began with the city's defenses. He proposed moving patrols in irregular patterns, using decoys to confuse the enemy sensors, and creating hidden escape routes that could be used to protect civilians. He also coordinated with alien engineers to modify energy shields, making them more flexible and responsive. As they worked, Lyra shadowed him, asking questions and learning. Why do you always think ahead? She asked. Because waiting until the last second is too late, Aric said. Humans survive by planning, adapting, and acting fast. The first wave of the rogue faction arrived just as Aric had predicted. The enemy ships moved swiftly, attempting to breach the city's outer defenses. But this time they met unexpected resistance. Patrols moved in irregular paths, decoys misled the attackers, and the flexible shields absorbed and redirected their fire. Auric piloted a strike team in the outer sector, using tactics that combined human ingenuity and alien technology. His team disabled the lead ships, forcing the remaining attackers to scatter. Even the rogue faction's leader, Veyran, realized that humans were not to be underestimated. Back in the city, Soria and her forces followed Auric's instructions carefully. His unconventional strategies turned the tide. Alien technology alone had not been enough, but humans added a layer of adaptability, creativity, and unpredictability that the attackers could not match. Lyra watched from a secure observation deck, her eyes wide with admiration. "He's amazing," she whispered. "He's like a hero from the stories." Auric smiled at her words, quietly reminding her that heroism was more than fighting. "A hero helps others even when it's hard," he said. Hours passed and the battle raged. Rogue ships continued to press the city, but Auric's strategies proved effective. They disabled key vessels, disrupted enemy formations, and minimized civilian casualties. The human ability to improvise and think ahead had given them an advantage that no alien technology alone could achieve. Finally, after relentless effort, the rogue faction began to retreat. Their morale was broken, their forces depleted. The city had survived, stronger and more united than before. Soria approached Auric in the aftermath. Her expression was a mixture of relief and admiration. "Your strategies, your presence. It saved countless lives today." Auric shook his head. "It wasn't just me. Your people fought bravely. Humans add something extra. Creativity, courage, and determination. That's why we survived together." Soria's eyes softened. "Perhaps we have underestimated humans. You are not just survivors, you are protectors, allies, even friends." Lyra ran up to Auric holding a small model of the city. "We did it!" she exclaimed. "We really did it!" Auric ruffled her hair. "Yes, Lyra, together." As the city began rebuilding, Auric and Soria worked on strengthening alliances. He shared human tactics, taught alien engineers how to adapt quickly, and encouraged cooperation between the two species. The rogue faction's attack had shown that survival required collaboration, and humans had proven their value not just through bravery, but through intelligence, ingenuity, and compassion. That night, as Auric stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing city, he reflected on the battle. Humans had always faced impossible odds, yet they had survived. They had adapted, evolved, and thrived in countless environments across the galaxy. Tonight was no different. Courage, creativity, and empathy had saved the city, and he had no doubt that these qualities would continue to make humans exceptional. Lyra appeared beside him, her eyes shining with admiration. "Do you think humans can really change everything?" she asked. Auric smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Humans have always changed everything they touch, Lyra. They don't give up, they don't stay small, and they always try to protect others. That's why we matter." The twin moons reflected off the city's towers, casting long shadows. The rogue faction was gone for now, but Auric knew the galaxy would always be full of challenges. Yet humanity had shown once again that courage, intelligence, and compassion were their greatest weapons. And with those, they could face anything. The city had survived. Civilians began to return to their daily routines, and the once tense streets buzzed with cautious optimism. Lyra laughed as she ran through the floating walkways, her joy a bright contrast to the recent chaos. Auric watched from a distance, pride swelling in his chest. Humans had once again proven their worth, not just as warriors, but as protectors and friends. Soria approached him quietly. "Captain Auric," she said, her tone calm but serious. "The city owes you a great debt. You have proven humans are capable of more than we imagined." Auric nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I only did what I thought was right. Anyone in my position would have done the same." "You underestimate the value of your kind," she said. "Humans are bold, clever, and compassionate. You inspire loyalty and trust even in those who have been your enemies." The truth of her statement struck him. Humans had always faced the impossible, whether surviving harsh planets, navigating dangerous space battles, or negotiating with alien species. Their strength lay not only in courage, but in empathy and ingenuity. That combination made humans exceptional. Lyra ran up, holding a small model of the Starhawk she had been building. "Captain Auric, will you stay?" she asked. "Please." "We need you here." Auric hesitated. His duty as a human captain called him back to his colony. He had responsibilities, missions, and a life waiting elsewhere. But he looked at Lyra, saw the trust in her eyes and the subtle gratitude and admiration of her mother. The bond they had formed was powerful, and it had changed him. I don't know," he admitted honestly, "but I promise I will always protect you no matter where I am." Soria observed this quietly. She had been trained to be cautious, to trust only actions proven over time. Yet Auric's deeds, his bravery, and his selfless protection of her daughter had left an imprint she could not ignore. "Captain," she said finally, "perhaps it is time to reconsider your path. Not all battles are fought in space. Some are fought through loyalty, trust, and courage. Your presence here could ensure peace, not just survival." Auric looked out at the city, the glowing towers reflecting the light of the twin moons. He thought of the rogue faction, of the lives saved, of the trust he had earned. Humans had always been explorers and warriors, but he realized that their most remarkable quality was their ability to inspire hope, unity, and courage in others. "I will stay," he said at last. "Not because I have to, but because I choose to. Lyra, your safety and happiness matter more than any mission, and Ambassador Soria, I will help your people as best as I can." Lyra cheered, running into his arms. "Thank you." "Thank you, Captain Auric." Soria nodded, a rare smile gracing her face. "Then you're truly more than I expected. Humans, you are remarkable." In the following days, Auric worked alongside Soria to strengthen the city's defenses and improve cooperation between humans and aliens. He taught human strategies and problem-solving techniques, helping engineers and leaders adapt quickly to unforeseen challenges. Humans had a unique ability to turn obstacles into opportunities, and under Auric's guidance, the city became stronger than ever. Lyra shadowed him constantly, learning and laughing as they explored new technologies and devised plans for potential threats. She was fearless now, inspired by the courage and resourcefulness of the human who had saved her life. Soria watched this dynamic with quiet pride. Her daughter's trust and admiration for Auric had opened her own mind. Humans were no longer outsiders, they were allies, protectors, and friends. The rogue faction would not return immediately, but the city was prepared. Auric's human perspective had provided not only practical advantages, but also a reminder of the value of courage, ingenuity, and empathy. He had proven that humans could bridge divides, protect the vulnerable, and inspire trust in even the most skeptical minds. At night, standing with Lyra on the balcony, Auric gazed at the stars. He felt a sense of fulfillment, not from victories alone, but from the bonds formed and the lives saved. Humans had always faced the impossible, and tonight was no different. Their greatest strength lay not in power alone, but in their courage, adaptability, and heart. Lyra leaned against him,